Let me ask you something, bucko. Do you know what day it is? Don't actually answer that. I can't hear you. It's June 20th, also known as the summer solstice, also known as the first day of summer. Let me ask you something else. You know who hates the heat? Spending my whole life in the state known for being so hot people literally cook eggs on the ground, I've grown to truly despise the feeling of being hot. Sure, I could go hop in a pool or something, but to do that I'd have to go outside. It's because of my vehement distaste for leaving my cave that I've grown to really love video games that let me experience those beautiful summery landscapes in the comfort of air conditioning. And when a series I love comes together with that gorgeous aesthetic, oh boy, I'm in for a treat. What? Think I'm just gonna transition right into it? It's gonna be like, oh funny, I'm just talking about the heat, but then all of a sudden, Super Mario Sunshine was released back in 2002 for the best game console of all time, the GameCube. It had been a whole 6 years since the previous 3D Mario came out and did a little thing called forever changing the landscape of video games, and while I'm sure that felt like an eternity back then, considering it took us 15 years to get another one after that, hindsight is just kicking ass right now. But in terms of video games, if there's one position I don't at all envy being in, it's probably being a follow-up to Super Mario 64. While certain aspects of it have certainly shown their age, and some, including my younger self, have spouted complaint after complaint about its controls, it has this raw, undefinable magic that I can't imagine replicating. The point is, aside from having the benefit of being a Mario game, Sunshine kind of had the odds stacked against it from minute one. Much to the benefit of my desire to live out a fun, tropical experience, the entire game takes place on the beautiful Isle Delfino, where Mario, Peach, and Toadsworth are traveling for a nice vacation. And they get to enjoy that vacation for all of 0 seconds before a monster rises from a puddle of what can truly only be described as icky paint-like goop. Thankfully, Mario stumbles across Flood, the Flash Liquidizer Ultra Dowsing device. What the hell does all that mean? It shoots water. While Mario attempts to use said water to clean up the goop, Peach spots a shadowy figure in the distance who soon disappears. No time to talk about that though, because now Mario's in jail, because these jackholes think he's the one who dirtied up the island. Yeah, the Delfino inhabitants don't waste time on such unimportant things as proof. To make up for his crimes, Mario must travel to each location on Delfino Island and clean things up, step by step rescuing each of the island's shine sprites and erasing the darkness that surrounds it. So I know I'm in the middle of explaining everything here, but can we just take a breather and talk about how insane the concept for this game is? It shocks me that they looked at the game that pioneered 3D platforming as we know it, and not only had the idea to make the sequel about cleaning up paint with a water backpack, but even went through with that idea. Not only that, but they took everything we previously knew about the Mario world and flipped it on its head. This game has almost entirely new enemies and species, as well as only like 4 or 5 previously existing characters. When I say that GameCube era Nintendo is the best Nintendo we ever had, this is the kind of stuff I'm referring to. I love most everything about Mario's universe, and I don't hate seeing the environments we so often do, but when they go this far for the games, it's magical. Much like its predecessor, you'll be exploring a hub world that takes you to smaller stages with varied objectives within them. There's Bianco Hills, Rico Harbor, Gelato Beach, Pinna Park, Hell, Noki Bay, and Serena Beach. If you're at all familiar with 64, you're probably thinking, wow, that's like half as many levels as last time, but let me correct you. It's less than half. I really don't understand why they decided to drop from 15 courses to 7. It's not like they're much bigger or anything. At least there are 8 missions in each one instead of 6, but that hardly makes up the difference. To be fair though, they all look much more natural and realized than 64's jumbled mess of polygons, and rather than just picking any levels you want, you're actually required to beat at least the first 7 missions of them all to beat the game. It's a close call, but I think my favorite of them is Rico Harbor. Even if it's annoying to fall off, I love running around on the scaffolding, and don't even get me started on how feel-good blooper surfing is. Second place I'd give to Gelato Beach, simply for being the best looking and having arguably the most memorable missions in the entire game. After that is Pinna Park. It's a sun-drenched theme park with a working roller coaster and wearable sunglasses. Hell yeah, dude. Smack dab in the middle of the rankings is Noki Bay. It's pretty perfectly average, but it does have its good moments. Bianco Hills is pretty much the same, but I knocked it down to 5th for being just a little less interesting. 6th place goes to Serena Beach. It's a pretty gorgeous area on the outside, but unfortunately only 2 of the missions are actually out there, and the rest are in the hotel, which just isn't much fun to navigate. Also, a couple of its missions are some serious bullshit, but by far the absolute worst is Pianta Village. It's easily the most uninspired, bland place out of the 7, and almost all of its missions frustrated me. It's also the only one that doesn't have a single boss fight. Lame. As mentioned earlier, helping you traverse these areas and single-handedly making this game stick out from all other Mario games is Flood. It has 4 different nozzles you can use that all fire water in different ways. The squirt nozzle shoots a line as you'd expect, the hover nozzle lets you float for a short period of time, the rocket nozzle lets you charge up a blast of water that shoots you way up in the air, and the turbo nozzle does pretty much the same thing, but for moving horizontally. I'll be honest though, the rocket and turbo nozzle aren't used too much. They're a little too specific, whereas the squirt and hover nozzles are pretty universally useful, especially hover, which can help you completely skip some some platforming. And that's appreciated because if there's one thing that makes Sunshine so divisive among fans, it's the controls. First of all, can we stop arguing over this? It has become exceedingly clear that there is no such thing as good or bad controls in a 3D platformer. There's just no way to make everyone happy. There is no perfect control scheme. There is no objectively bad control scheme. Except for Mario 64 DS, that game controls like ass. Second of all, I can't really contribute much to the conversation of how this game controls because I find that my opinion flip-flops back and forth between good and bad repeatedly as I play. Sometimes you get the razor precision and wonder in motion that you'd hope for out of a 3D platformer, and sometimes the game just decides, no, you are going to move in the way I want you to, and that's that. It's truly shocking how often you seem to be doing nothing wrong, and yet just can't get his thick plumber ass to do what it should be. If I can say one thing about the controls though, it's that I'm not a fan of how they allocated the buttons, and it's probably the fault of Flood for having so many features. A, X, Y, and right trigger are consistent, but L is both ground pound and camera center, which means you can't center the camera while in the air, and B is just whatever the hell they want it to be that day. I think the best example comes in the form of the grates. You press A to jump onto them, so I'd assume you press A to jump off of them, but no, that lets you punch one of the flipping parts, so you use B to get off. However, if you're on a sideways one, it's A to get off, and if you want to punch a sideways one, it's B. What the f***? B also lets you dive forward, but it also lets you talk to people, but it also lets you pick things up. I'm gonna have an aneurysm. And let me tell you, man, the last thing you want in Super Mario Sunshine is an inconsistency in the controls, because this is easily the hardest 3D Mario ever made, and some of the stuff it asks of you, games like Odyssey couldn't even dream of. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that Sunshine is known for its difficulty and insane tasks. The most iconic has gotta be the Sandbird. It flies around in the sky with 7 red coins on its back that you have to collect without falling off so you can get the 8th at the end, and it'll do anything in its power to get you to fall. But let me be honest with you, this Sandbird level, it's not bad. Literally just run as fast as you can to grab the 7 coins, and then focus all of your time on finding a safe spot to not fall off when it turns, and you'll be fine. What is bad, though, is the goddamn Watermelon Festival. Dear f***ing God, this is as bad as everyone says. In a nutshell, you have to tank this giant watermelon from the top of the level down to the cabana by the beach without letting it explode, which means it can't touch cataquacks, which are everywhere, and it can't touch anything sometimes? Everything about this level is inconsistent. Which direction it moves when you push it, whether or not the cataquacks go after it, what makes it explode, and why it teleports. What the— oh my god, Jesus Christ! It ended up taking me about 15 minutes in total, but I honestly think I got pretty lucky to make it happen that quickly. Another I definitely hated was Yoshi's Fruit Adventure. Spin jumping with this lad is scarily imprecise, and yet it seemed like it was required, and instead of a failure making me just grab another watermelon, failure means swimming all the way back to shore, ground pounding this crap until it gives me the right fruit again since Yoshi dissolves in water for no reason, then riding this slow ass platform back, then trying again. When I finally got to the end of it, I couldn't figure out how to get off Yoshi, and I was so scared I was gonna accidentally fall off and die. But then the game just randomly let me clip through the side, so that was nice. In the end, I'm probably one of the only people who has ever finished this level while still on Yoshi. And that's a pretty good segue into talking about one of the most interesting topics about Sunshine, its objective quality. Mario is obviously Nintendo's golden child, so it's always gonna get a heaping helping of polish and testing. But sometimes it feels like Sunshine kinda just skipped that part. It is unquestionably the most glitchy Mario game ever released. I felt like I could barely get through a single mission without something weird happening. Here I am phasing through a boat. Oh look, it's oh, okay. He's part of the wall now. And it all culminated in Pianta Village when I fell onto this tree branch and slid off into the abyss, only to survive and walk around on nothingness with the entire level above me. I have a really weird childlike fear of breaking my games by messing with stuff like this, so I didn't stick around long, but it was certainly a highlight of my playthrough for all the wrong reasons. The boss fights in Sunshine vary from mediocre and tedious to amazing and unforgettable. I don't have all that much to say about any of them though, aside from Pinna Park's Mecha Bowser fight, which is absolute top-tier, grade A Mario material. Only GameCube-era Nintendo would think of a boss fight where you're shooting rockets at a robot while riding a roller coaster. It's just— mwah. Oh yeah, if I didn't mention it yet, after Shadow Mario pulls a Moses to have the boss rise from under the park, it's revealed that he was actually Bowser Jr. all along. This was his first appearance in any game. No one knew what a Bowser Jr. was before that, and I really wish I had the experience of that surprise for the first time again, because it's such a neat one. To the shock of no one, he's the one who's been messing up the island and the one who framed you for it, all in an attempt to kidnap Peach, who he thinks is his mom. I've always found it strange how Peach reacts to him saying this. She talks about it like it's legitimately a possibility, and it's like, Did you? Regardless, once this happens, the goal reverts back to saving Peach as always, which you do by tracking Junior down in all 7 stages. And don't worry, it's horrifically annoying every time. But once you catch him for the 7th time, he floods Delfino Plaza and makes you chase him into Corona Mountain, which is nowhere near as refreshing as the name makes it sound. It's actually the worst stage in the game too. I didn't even include it in my ranking earlier because it barely counts as one. It's not hard because they give you so many 1-ups during it. It's not exciting because the best strategy is to just sit around and take your time. It doesn't have the summery vibe that every other stage has, and it's over before you know it. At least it leads you to the final boss, which is once again fun and memorable as all hell. Junior and Bowser are taking a nice healthy green bath, and you have to use the rocket nozzle to go for a ground pound of epic proportions on each designated spot while Bowser shoots fire and Junior fires missiles. When you finally flip it, the day is saved and Flood's dead. He's dead, okay? But not actually though. Bowser and his son sit and stare across the ocean as they talk about how Peach isn't actually Junior's mother, all leading to one of the best, most iconic moments in the history of the franchise.
I wanna fight that Mario again.
That's my boy. Oh yeah, also the game has been voice acted this whole time. Super Mario Sunshine. Its low points are some of the lowest you can possibly imagine for a Mario game, but its high points give me a feeling that no other video game in this entire world possibly can. It's pretty much a tradition of mine to play this game every summer, and I always walk away happy that I did. I also should have mentioned at some point that if the gameplay footage was of a little less quality than you would normally expect from this show, it's because I was dead set on playing this game on my actual GameCube. The style, the music, the locales, I adore this game with all of my heart. And with rumors of 3D Mario remakes coming down the pipeline, I really hope Sunshine is at the top of that list, because I don't know if there's any video game that deserves it more, or could more benefit from the tiny fixes that a remake can entail. If you have a GameCube, you have to play Super Mario Sunshine. It's an experience you will never forget. Never forget Yoshi's Fruit Adventure. Never forget the Watermelon Festival. No. Oh God.